opium and good neighbors, how Solovyov justifies the current war by rewriting the history of Britain and Europe. Trump's peace plan, as a stage play Skabeeva's 60 Minutes, continues a familiar narrative. Trump's peace plan is presented as the only real roadmap, the US as the main and almost sole mediator, Russia as a rational partner, Europe as a nervous and powerless extra, and Ukraine as a stubborn but irrelevant obstacle. 1. Ukraine. Not surrendering means interfering with peace. The opening section centers on Kyiv's response to the question of territorial concessions. Ukraine refuses to give up territories outside those already occupied. It emphasizes that the positions of the parties are incompatible, and Kyiv believes that Russia does not seek peace. Skabeeva constructs a mirror image lens. It's not Moscow that is portrayed as the aggressor, but Ukraine's refusal to legalize its seizures that is presented as the main obstacle to peace. The same logic applies to language policy. Any Russian demands regarding language laws are described as a normal negotiating agenda, while Ukrainian resistance is irrational. In effect, the audience is being asked to accept the thesis. If Ukraine doesn't agree to a soft pact capitulation, it is its own fault for continuing the war. Is Ukraine prepared to make any territorial concessions beyond what Russia has already occupied? The answer coming from Kyiv is no. We also haven't heard about numerous other points that were in the original 28-point plan and were unacceptable to Ukraine, or take Russia's desire to interfere with Ukrainian sovereignty by demanding that Ukraine adopt certain laws regarding language policy. We haven't heard anything about that either. In Ukraine, the view is that the two sides' positions are incompatible and that Russia isn't truly committed to peace. However, the fact that Steve Witkow returned to Moscow after talks with Ukrainians in Florida may indicate that some process is still ongoing, that he has something to report, and that the two sides aren't ready to simply give up yet. 2. Europe as a hysterical passenger without leverage. Then the European Union enters the picture. Kaja Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen are portrayed as forces obsessed with their own peace plan. The formula, "we've been going in circles for the third time already," is heard. April, August and November, each time Russia demands capitulation, and Europe can't change anything. El País and Politico are quoted selectively to reinforce the picture. The negotiations are existential for the EU, but are taking place without Europe, with Washington and Moscow setting the tone. Thus, the EU appears politically confused, excluded from the main format, forced to observe and comment on other people's plans. This is a convenient picture for Moscow. European capitals are irritated but powerless commentators, interfering but not deciding. 3. The US and Witkoff, Hollywood instead of diplomacy. A separate section is dedicated to Steve Witkoff. His closeness to Trump, his personal wealth, his status as a developer, and his almost Hollywood-like friendship story, he paid for Trump at a diner, are emphasized. Criticism for his lack of diplomatic experience is simultaneously mentioned, but immediately offset by stories of successful negotiations and prisoner exchanges. El País and other Western media are used as an additional source of legitimacy. If even the European press writes in such detail, it means the figure is serious. This personalization of the negotiations accomplishes two things. 1. It transforms a complex multilateral process into a straightforward story about Trump's envoy who can bring peace. 2. It emphasizes that real decisions are made not in Brussels or Kyiv, but by the Trump-Witkoff-Putin negotiating team. A characteristic detail, Zelensky doesn't appear at all in the negotiating schedule, either before or after Moscow. This is a demonstrative nullification of Ukrainian agency. 4. Europe as a brake on the US-Russian deal. Another important motif in the fragment is the accusation that Europe is sabotaging the negotiations. The Wall Street Journal is quoted as if Brussels is interfering with the agreements between Moscow and Washington. It is said that the Pentagon ignores the German Ministry of Defense and fails to inform allies of decisions on arms supplies. It concludes that if it weren't for the Europeans, Russia and the US would have reached an agreement long ago. This inverts the usual European perspective. Russia would not be seen as the source of a threat to European security, but the EU itself would be seen as a problematic player, preventing the adults, the US and Russia, from resolving the issue. Think, analyze, draw conclusions, and don't be fooled. This was the program Empire of Lies.